Right, so ladies and gentlemen, if anyone here this afternoon is feeling nervous, apprehensive and queasy at the thought of what lies ahead, it's probably because you've just married Andy. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Matt, and I'm a friend of Andy's, and for today at least, his best man. Now, my formative years with the groom has meant that he's spent as much of a part forming my sense of humour as anyone, so although I've tried to make this as humorous as possible, if it's not, you can blame Andy. So, before I undertake the customary duty of giving Andy an uncomfortable few minutes, I'd like to say a few thank yous, if I can. I'd like to thank the bridesmaids. We've done a fantastic job today and look absolutely wonderful. The groomsmen, you've done all right. Even though you did try and copy what I'm wearing. Navy. And I think you'll all agree, Izzy looks 1 in a million. Whereas Andy looks like he was 1 in a raffle.
I won the raffle 2.5 years ago, it still looks as good.
So I've known Andy a long time, and from the moment he asked me to be best man, the speech was definitely going to be the most challenging part of the day. Not least because I could only choose some of a selection of stories, embarrassing stories, that would be at my disposal. But the truth is, most aren't suitable to be shared here today. So Andrew, John, Sims, Andy, Simo, Jonesy. Andrew was born on the 28th of January, 1985, a date I never forget. Now, I tried my best to link this date to some momentous historical event, but it turns out that absolutely eventful happened that day. I say that, the nurses at St Peter's Hospital still refer to it as Ugly Tuesday. So, I'm not afraid to say that I was really and I know there's nothing that Andy won't do for me. And that's pretty much how we continue to live our lives, doing absolutely nothing. Now, Andy made his mark at Lingfield School. There's actually a lasting memorial to him there. It's in the form of a concrete barrier. They decided to erect it not long after Andy walked aimlessly out of the entrance and aimlessly under a passing car.
Yeah. With a trailer. With a trailer.
So, Andy was always popular at school, particularly in his own mind with the girls. I remember once he was going out with one half of a pair of identical twins. Now, the only problem was, he didn't have a clue which was which.
They really were identical.
And I just remember one evening at some event when they both turned up exactly at the same time. And I just watched Andy. Just watched the colour drain from his face in blind panic just before he ran off. It's probably not your finest that.
I swear to God, I bought a ring and I didn't know which one to give it to. And the other girlfriend was yours. The other girl was yours.
Well, it's not about incriminating. Now, largely because they'd recently invested in a new remote-controlled fart machine. Now, we made the most of this purchase in busy bars of an evening. So one had to position the speaker in their back pocket, whilst the others sat some distance away, poised to press the button. Now, Andy was particularly good at positioning himself next to big groups of people, whilst the others frantically pressed the button at a distance. Andy, however, was very good at adding a completely other level to this sensory experience. and was particularly proud when this big group of middle-aged women all got up to move away from a strange little smelly boy. You're a lucky girl, Izzy. Now, we ended up going to different secondary schools, but from what I hear, Andy could apply himself to most things, you know, if he tried, including the odd t-shirt. A natural sportsman, he grew up playing football, cricket, and representing Sackville and East Rinton Sports Club. Andy also, from a very young age,
groomsman down there.
and he financed private lessons for a while, and he became close to getting his private pilot's licence. I think, if I'm honest, the Civil Aviation Authority probably stepped in at that point and managed to convince him that it wasn't a good idea. And if his timekeeping is anything to go by, I don't think it was a bad thing. Now, the best example of this, and it would be good if Webber was here to relive this story, but when they were travelling in New Zealand, Andy, Webby and Jimmy, the two other guys were looking to make their way down from, was it Auckland?
Yeah, I think it was north to south island.
That's it, yeah, north to south. So Andy thought he'd take the quicker option of flying between the two. So left the other two guys. And so Andy got to the airport in good time, only to be told at the check-in desk that he was actually a day early for his flight. So, well, you know, better to be early than late. So Andy, being the type git that he is, decided not to check into a local hostel. He'd just sleep in the airport instead. So smugly, he checked in for his flight next day, got the way to the gate, but fell asleep at the gate and missed his flight. So he eventually got there. I've completely lost my flow now, sorry, bear with me. So yeah, a journey that should have taken him an hour and 25 minutes ended up taking him 3 days. So as many as Andy's friends and family will attest, we've continually had to undergo Andy's inventions. This time next year, he's going to be a millionaire. So I keep being nice to him just in case. Now, Andy and Izzy met online in 2018. That's despite living about 500 yards from each other. As many of you will know, pretty legless. It was only after those first couple of weeks that he managed to pluck up the courage and told Izzy that he couldn't drink and their relationship was already taking the toll. So, I remember speaking to Andy about 3 weeks in. He phoned up, sounding particularly depressed. I naturally assumed that Andy had finally given Izzy a lift in his car. She'd contracted something as a result and pulled the whole thing off. But no, she'd just gone away with work and he was pining after her. At which point he then started to declare his love for Izzy down the phone.
3 weeks, not 3 months, as you said this week.
I was lusting after you after 3 months, and then I said that I love you after 3 months.
We won't get home from the detail. So at which point, I rather unsupportingly in hindsight, said, steady on mate, you've only known her a couple of weeks. Now 6 months later, departing the life of leaving porridge bowls under his bed at Steve's. And he moved into his flat. Now I think if we're all honest, we gave it a week. If that. I mean, it wouldn't be long before Izzy snapped under the pressure of the 4-day-old coffee mugs, the discarded crisp packets or the festering banana skins left on the place. But somehow, she managed to persuade him to clear up after himself. A task Sharon abandoned after 2 decades. So they started looking and they looked at 2 identical houses. One was ready to move into, the other, in Izzy's words, was vile. Izzy refused to even consider the latter, so Andy went and offered on it straight away. And they ended up buying the skanky house. Eventually, Andy managed to talk Izzy round, and they both worked really hard to turn the skanky house into casa skanky. And in just a short time, it was clear that Andy and Izzy were really serious about each other. And it was evident very quickly that their love was so pure and so simple. Izzy, so pure. Andy, so simple. After a year of being in COVID lockdown together, Andy made the decision that it was best to propose to Izzy before restrictions came to an end. And she could do a run-up. Now, Andy made the amazingly ballsy step of arranging for their close family, the saxophonist that was here this evening, and a photographer to hide in the bushes in the middle of the Richdown forest. Now, I'd imagine you were probably all more nervous than Andy, in the fact that if Izzy said no, you probably would have had to have all scarfed and pretended the whole thing. But luckily for everyone involved, Izzy said yes. I'd like to say I was supportive when Andy first told me that he was going to propose to Izzy. I'm truly embarrassed to say that I replied sarcastically by saying, "What do you want to go and do that for?" I'll take it all back. It's now abundantly clear. And here we are, you're finally married. For better or for worse. Which is quite appropriate, really, because Andy couldn't have done better. And Izzy... I won't keep you any longer. I know you're all here for the main spectacle. Andy's dancing. So, no, it gives me great pleasure. Just one more thing before I finish. So, so to finish, best of luck to you both. I really am delighted for the 2 of you. I hope you have a long and happy future together. And Andy, don't cry. It's been a pleasure to be your best friend. It gives me immense pleasure to invite you all to stand in a toast to the new Mr. and Mrs. Sims.